There is power in your story. Write and publish in 90 days. It's time to thrive and achieve it.
Thank you for tuning in. A live stream new episode of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show will be starting soon. With your host, minister, and author Stephanie M. Seaton. If you would like to be a guest on the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show, email Stephanie at stephaniemseatontheauthor@gmail.com.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another edition of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show. Tonight, I'm speechless. I have got a new friend, a new soror, a new mentor. She just don't know it yet. I am so happy to welcome Dr. Kendra Norman Holmes to the studio. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, I am. Listen, for all of you tuning in tonight, go ahead and like, tag, and share. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. This is an interview that you're going to want to go ahead and grab the popcorn. This is going to be an amazing conversation tonight. This lady is an amazing lady, not just because of the accomplishments, but behind the scenes. Just an amazing lady. So go ahead and get comfortable, get cozy. We will acknowledge your comments tonight. So go ahead and chime in if you want to get in on the conversation tonight. Again, we are welcoming Dr. Kendra Norman Holmes. How does it feel? How does it feel on this Sunday evening? I told you, I woke up from a nap and had to get myself together. So how are you feeling this afternoon?
I'm doing great. I am doing great. It's always busy on Sundays for me. It's busy every day, really, but it's extra busy on Sundays. But I feel good. I feel great. So I'm glad to be here, glad to share. Thankful and humbled that you asked me to come and to join you. And so I'm just looking forward to tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let's just jump on in there. I'm going to ask you, listen, this is the first question I ask every guest on the podcast. Please tell us, who is Dr. Kendra Norman Holmes?
How much time do you have? Okay. Dr. Kendra Norman Holmes is a woman who wears so many hats. I can say this though, as I've mentioned before, my whole life is really ministry. And so the things that God has given me to carry out, even my 9-to-5, my corporate America job, I get to do ministry there. I get to encourage people, talk to people. You know, people come to me for counsel and people come to me and share what's on their hearts. And so even then and there, although that's not something that aligns with what people would see as, church ministry and things like that, it's still ministry. And so, and the funny thing is, Stephanie, that when I started my job, I never told anybody that I was a minister. I never told anybody I was saved. I didn't broadcast any of that, none of it in my background, any of that. But at some point, everybody just knew, and I just believe our life really speaks for us. But when you think about me, you just know that there's a lot. I juggle a lot between being a wife, being a mom, although my children are adults. I'm a grandmother. Those are my heartbeats, my grandbabies with that. But aside from that, I'm a church pastor. So I actually lead a church congregation that's a fairly new ministry, maybe I would say a young ministry that is growing. That is progressive, and God has blessed us to enter a new sanctuary that is ours. In the time we have been ministering in the past, we've been renting from one place to the other, getting there. And if I could, it would take all the program just almost for me to share the testimony of how God opened the door for that
Mm.
church, not a church we
Yeah.
went after, but God had them to chase after us. God had them to find
Woo.
us
Yeah.
and open the opportunity for us to be in this 250 seated church that comes with its own fellowship hall and baptismal pool
Yeah.
and 2
Yeah.
plots of land that go along with it and an
Woo.
additional building that goes
Yeah.
along with it. God
Wow.
just blew our mind. He did exceeding
Yeah.
abundantly above. And
Woo.
so between what I have learned is that although I have really kind of given my whole life to God, and I think I followed the pattern of my father. My dad is still at 86. He's still preaching. He's still traveling. He's still doing ministry. You know, he can't get around like he used to, but with everything in his body, he's giving it to God. And
Yeah.
so I used to look at him as a child growing up, and it was like everything he did was ministry. And in my mind, I'm just like, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like that. You know, I'm going to
Yeah.
do this. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But it was like God said, I can show you and I can tell you, you know, and he really pulled me in that, and he gave me a heart for it. I absolutely love the call that he has on my life, although it does take up a lot of my time, and it, you know, it has me doing things in ministry constantly. Even with my writing, I'm also an author. I'm a national bestselling author with about 23 books or so that I have been blessed to publish. And so even in that, it's ministry. I'm writing, even when I'm writing fiction, I'm writing fiction that is based on faith, and Christ is the center of the fictional novels that I put together. And when I'm writing nonfiction, it's definitely to inspire, to motivate, to minister to the masses. And so everything that I do, from the pastoring to my job, 9-to-5 job, to the podcast that I am about to launch, that's ministry. And and to the newspaper. I actually have a newspaper, online newspaper, that's been kind of on hiatus for a couple of months, that we're about to get started again. It's ministry. All it shares is good news. We're not talking about who killed who stole what person did nothing political. We're not into that. We're talking about the good things that people are doing, the things that God is doing through people's lives. That's the only thing we talk about in this paper. So with every aspect of my life, every slice of pie that God has given me in my life is all sprinkled in ministry. And I am just so thankful that God has entrusted me in that way, that I can share his good news and his message wherever I go, to whomever I come in contact with. So I just believe that I'm blessed to be a blessing.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, you know, I just said this off camera before we got started. Kendra, literally, there was a lot of things that we have parallel and in common. And, you know, I initially met Kendra because we're going to talk about a little bit later, Rho Alpha Tau, Sorority and Fraternity Incorporated. And I was looking at her bio, and it is amazing the things that she has been able to accomplish, but not only that, the things that she's been through and overcome. And to hear her talk about her life being ministry, like, hello. And to hear someone else say that, even just in that phrase, like, that's all I know is that I have to do ministry for myself. You know, I don't exist if I don't, if that makes sense.
Right. Right.
And so, oh wow! And I didn't know you had the newspaper. Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, it's been on higher. I think the last time that I put out a fresh paper, it started out being one that was printed, and people would subscribe. I would send it through the mail. That's very costly, and so we migrated to being an online newspaper, and so now it's basically free. People can go online and just read these articles and read whatever. You'll hear about it because I'm going to have to feature you. And so we're going to, you know, I said in 25, when 25 rolled in, I don't know that it's going to remain monthly as it has been because of so many other things I have going on. But even if it's a seasonal paper that comes out, spring, summer, winter, fall edition that comes out, we're going to get it started back in this year of 2025 to continue to share some great news. That gives us a platform to share it far and beyond the area where I am. Anybody with internet can actually go on and read about it.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing. And we definitely have to talk about that, because I announced, I think in November, I got a vision to start a digital magazine. And I have never in my life done a digital magazine.
Wow.
But I got the revelation to start a digital magazine. So yeah,
Okay.
we'll have to talk because I've never
Yeah,
done it.
we have to.
I'm just obedient. I'm like, okay.
Mhm. Yep, blind faith, blind faith.
Hey, I'm walking on water literally
Yeah,
every day. I'm
yeah.
like, okay, Lord, we're still
Mhm.
out here. Like, we're still out here, right? You still with me?
Right, right.
Whew. Well, I tell you, listen, we've got so many things to talk about. I want to give you your flowers. So I want to kind of give a little bit of your background, Miss Kendra.
Okay.
So Miss Kendra Norman, African American writer and Christian fiction and nonfiction Christian literature. Her novels are known and widely applauded for her positive male lead characters and their combined romantic and suspenseful storyline. So we know that she is writing with a message, with a purpose, which I love. Miss Kendra is originally from West Palm Beach, Florida. Spent most of her formative years in southern Georgia, where she resides now. Miss Kendra happened to marry Mr. Jimmy Holmes, who previously passed away. And then she married her current husband, Michael Holmes. And I love this part right here, whose last name was also Holmes, but no relation to Michael that
Right.
passed away. You were destined to be a Holmes, okay?
Yeah, apparently.
You were destined to be a Holmes, okay? And so Miss Kendra has daughters. How many daughters do you have?
I have two daughters.
Two daughters. She has
Mhm.
two daughters, and began to write when she was in actually elementary.
Mhm.
She started to write her first piece of poetry. I saw here that after the loss of your husband, that kind of sparked, I guess, a lot of, going through grief, a lot of
Right.
emotions, a lot of
Mhm.
feelings.
Mhm.
And so you actually began to write shortly after that. And it looks like that's what kind of took the spin of things. So you and I've seen this before. I've heard this before where, the Lord will put something in us at a young age. So in
Mhm.
elementary school, you started with the poems and the poetry, and
I
life
did.
probably happened in the middle, and then this great incident happened. And
Mhm.
would you say that kind of awoke that passion, or it became a passion after that because you had all these thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, I think that prior to the passing of my first husband and me starting to write then as a young adult,
Hmm.
I just kind of saw my writing as a talent, like it's something I was just talented with
Yeah,
writing, and so I did a lot of. I wrote my first poem as a fifth grader. In
yeah.
my fifth grade class, I remember my teacher saying, it was almost at Mother's Day time, and she said, I need everybody, all of you all, to do something creative for your moms. And while most of my classmates were going and getting glue and popsicle sticks and, going cutting magazines and making handmade cards, I don't know, all of a sudden in my mind, I thought I was Maya Angelou. And so I sat down and decided,
Yeah.
that I was just going to write this poem. And that was like the very first piece of literature that I really tried to write. And I didn't like start from there and just start writing, but
Mhm.
it sparked something even back then with
Yeah.
my writing. And so later on, I kind of focused on poetry for several years. And so
Okay.
I was writing poetry. I remember getting into a citywide poetry contest in Valdosta, Georgia, and winning that citywide poetry contest when I
Oh,
became a part of that. And I continued writing poetry. The writing of novels and ministry books was something that was sparked after the passing of my husband, when I started as what I thought was a journal entry. And it ended
yeah.
up being, I sat down, a new computer I had just gotten, and I
Yes, I
sat
saw
down
that.
to just kind of write, because I honestly had not grieved his passing. I was trying to be
Mm,
strong for my children, trying to
yeah.
be strong for his parents, trying to be
Yeah.
strong for my parents who saw him as their son.
Yeah.
Everybody loved him. He was like a local celebrity in the area where he was.
Yeah.
People called on him to sing and to preach and do all of these things at the different
Yeah.
churches. So when he passed away, I just kind of felt like I was supposed to be that strong person. And I did not allow myself to grieve as I should have really grieved. So it was really 4 years later. It was 4 years after his death. I had gotten a new computer. I sat down, and the first words that I typed up were, "I shall not die." Those were the words I typed. And I typed those because that was the title of one of his last sermons. And in that sermon, he said, if God heals me, I'm going to live here. And if he takes me, I'm going to live there. So either way, I shall not die. And those were the words I typed out. And I just started typing all of that hurt and all of that pain and anger and frustration. Everything just came. What was supposed to be a journal entry ended up being like 100 and something pages long that I did. And I realized when I got finished, I really had written a manuscript. And it was the fact that that writing was so therapeutic for me. It like purged me. I cried 30 days, just every day, writing, typing, just crying. I didn't cry at the moment of his death. Well, I didn't cry heavily. At the time at his funeral, I was sitting there trying to be strong because my two daughters are my products of being married to him. And they were little girls. They didn't, their mama crying. I'm just sitting there trying to be happy and trying to act like everything was okay. And not really facing the fact that I had lost the person that I thought and saw at that time as being the love of my life. That was the person, it held our family together. That was the most important person, in my life. And I was trying to pretend that it was nothing. And that holding in that grief was literally destroying me. And it had taken me to a very dark place, a very depressed place. And nobody knew it, Stephanie, because guess what? When I went outside, I put on this smile and acted like everything was okay. They had no idea what happened when I closed the door to my front door, got in my house at night and turned the lights off. They had no idea of the struggle that I was really going through at that particular time. But writing that first manuscript really freed me. And basically what happened was after that, I started thinking to myself, man, if I could write stories that would free people like these stories, like that one story freed me. If I can make people feel better, if there are people that are going through some things and maybe they just need to read something that I wrote, to do it. And I started writing, no idea. I did not set out to publish. That was not what I meant to do. I was writing just because writing made me feel good. That writing, the stories popped up in my head that were not my own stories. I'm creating things, putting together. I literally had about anywhere between 7 and 9 manuscripts complete before I ever tried to publish anything. They were stacked in notebooks, binders behind my bed. And so just being therapy for me.
You having therapy sessions.
Yes, having therapy sessions with myself and with God. Yes. So in writing those stories that I was doing, and I had written about 7, 8 of them before I ever thought to publish. And somebody else had to come to me and say, when they read one of the things that I had written, they was like, you need to publish this stuff. This is great. And it wasn't out until then that I set out to actually publish. And so that's why I'm often telling people that, as dismal as sometimes it may sound, sometimes we find our purpose in our pain. Sometimes we find, we go through things in our life and we're going through those things and they are painful. They don't feel good, but God is trying to take us somewhere. It's a journey that he has us on, and every part of that journey is just not going to be happy. Everything is not going to make you feel good, but all things work together for the good of those that love God. Every piece of it is not going to feel good, but when it all comes together, it's working together for our good. If we love God and if we're called according to his purpose, God does not lie. It works together for our good. And as it turned out, it wasn't just for me. I thought I was writing just to purge Kendra, just to make Kendra feel good. But the pain that I went through was not just for me. The deliverance that I went through was not just for me. I had to share those stories that I was writing with the world. And it became therapy for so many people that read books, that would get in contact with me and say, this blessed me so much. Fictional stories that I made up, they were made up for me, but they ministered to somebody's real life situation when they actually would read it, and they would find some freedom in there. They would find a blessing in there. And so that's why I pray about everything. And that's why, before I'm not one of those people that say, oh, I'm going to have a book coming out in 2025. I don't know that. I'm waiting on God. If God says write a book, and if he gives me the idea to write it, I'm going to sit down and write it, because I write with a purpose. I'm writing for ministry, not just to entertain people, but I'm writing to edify, so I have to wait on God's direction when it comes to my writing, because it is in fact ministry.
It is definitely ministry. And the Lord will have you be transparent in your writings and say things in the writings, even through character writing, because somebody needs to hear it. They need to know that they're not the only person going through that. The enemy so many times, Kendra, will make us think that we're the only person dealing with something. And then that's his way of getting us in isolation and then self-condemnation. And then we stay stuck, stay stuck longer than we have to be. But once you pick up a book, once you read your Bible, once you attend a church service, and you're able to get in the presence of the Lord or be able to be ministered to, then you can have some transformation there. So I think that is so beautiful. Beautiful. So we're kind of talking a little bit about her books, Kendra, the author. I will say that she gained her national bestseller status when she published her third release called Crossing Jordan's River. And she published that through Moody Publishers, and that was in May of 2005. She peaked number 1 on the Essence magazine's bestsellers list for paperback fiction. So yes, ma'am. So listen, self-published. Her first was self-published debut novel For Love and Grace in 2002 and re-released in 2004 through BET Books. If you're looking her up, her previous pen name was Kendra Norman Bellamy. Okay. And then after 2013, Kendra Norman. So make sure you go and check out her books, her writings, because they will minister to your heart, ministering. And like we talked about earlier, positive books, positive male characters as well, but talking about real life issues. So make sure that you go out and check out her writings. I want to talk a little bit about you in growing up, Miss Kendra. What was family like growing up?
It's funny that you should even ask that question. Last Sunday, we had the dedication service for the new church that we moved into. And so the speaker for that occasion was my dad. So my dad came and actually spoke during that service. And as I was introducing him as the speaker to come up, I was talking a little bit about childhood and growing up. And I was telling the people that were there, I said, we grew up really in a household where we went to church, we went to school, we came home. It was a very staunch Christian home. We didn't even go to like ball games. We didn't go, prom nights. And because my dad saw prom as dating, and we didn't have his permission to date at that phase. And so we weren't going to proms. We weren't hanging out. If we could join like different clubs, like the Beta Club and the FBLA, FHA, we could be a part of those. But if they had anything that took place on a night when we had worship service or whatever, we could forget coming home and asking, can we go? Because we already knew the answer was no, that we were not going to be going to those particular events and things. So growing up in our home was full of love, was full of, of direction. I never had to look outside of my home for a positive father figure. I never had to look outside of my home to find what a Christian walk looked like. I didn't have to look outside of my home to look at how a godly wife was to carry herself, or a godly woman was to carry herself. It was all there. My mother and my father gave us that, and we knew what it was like to walk according to the will of God. We got picked at as kids because we couldn't go everywhere that all the other kids could. We couldn't dress like them. We couldn't act like them. We couldn't talk like them. We couldn't do that. And I was saying that in church on last Sunday. And I said, we didn't always appreciate that. I'm going to be honest about it. As children, you don't really appreciate that because you feel like your parents are being too strict. You feel like you should be able to do that. But as I was telling them, even in that service last Sunday, now I run across people that I went to school with, those that, you know, were in school along with me, whether they were ahead of me in my class, a little bit behind me, or whatever. They were like the real popular ones. They were the ones that all the guys to date. They were the ones or whatever. All the girls wanted to go after this guy or this one. And then I see them now, and I'm like, man, you know, that just rambunctious living and that whatever has caught up with them big time. So now when I go to class reunions, when I go to things like that, and I'm just like, wow, you know, this at one time was the heartthrob, or this person at one time, whatever, you know, and it makes me so grateful and so thankful for being brought up in an environment where that was not allowed, you know, where we just go and do, you know, anything or go and hang out with anybody and just be a part of the in crowd. We were always brought up to be different. We were brought up. We often hear people say, and it's true, that none of us are born saved. That is so true. But I kind of half jokingly tell people all the time, you know, in our household, now 5 of us, me and my siblings, there are 5 of us all total. And I told them, I said, none of us were born saved, but boy, we had to act saved, whether we were born saved or not. You know, you had to act. There was a guideline. People said that preachers had the worst kids. Not if you were Bishop Norman's child. You know, you were one of us. You were not one of the worst. Our parents never had to come to the schools to talk to teachers because we were acting up. We knew better than to shape our mouths to talk back to our parents. We knew better than to disrespect other adults. We knew better than all of that. We didn't get in trouble. My whole life, I never skipped school ever in my life. At this point, even at my life right now, I've never taken an alcoholic beverage. I don't know what it's I've never been in a club. And I say that not to make other people feel bad for what they have done. I'm giving my testimony because it's the way that I was actually raised, because God can heal you from many things, but he can also shield you. You don't ever have to even taste it. You never have to be a part of it. He can shield you from some things just as well as he can heal you from some things. And so I am very grateful for the way that I was brought up. You know, I can say that I wasn't quite as strict with my children as my parents were with me. However, a lot of that did pass over into the way that I raised my children. They couldn't talk back. I never been at the school, never been to a jailhouse, never had to talk to nobody to get them out of trouble, never had to do anything. They are women of God, strong women of God. They're in worship service with me. They're grown adults married with children of their own, and they're in worship service with me on Sundays. They're leading praise and worship. They are going and do, and so it passes from generation to generation. So my childhood, I grew up in a country town, Dixie, Georgia. What's the name of it? We moved there when I was like 7 years old. I was born in West Palm Beach, you know, great big, you know, town, metropolitan area, but we moved into the country. And I was brought up in that country town that even right now, you probably can't find it on the map. Dixie, Georgia is where I was brought up. We had to bus to our schools because there was not, outside of an elementary school, there wasn't any other schools in that town. We had to bus to get to our middle school and our high school and things of that nature. So there wasn't a whole lot to do. My parents gave us chores. We knew what it was like to work for an allowance or to do whatever. And if we got an allowance, because we knew if they said go cut the grass, whether they're going to pay us or not, we went and cut the grass. If they said wash the dishes, we just did that. I grew up in what I feel like was one of the best times, because it was when parents really raised their children. Many of them did, whether they were saved or not. They didn't even have to be church people. You just raised your children up with, it seemed like, a lot more standard than we really have today. And so as strict as my upbringing was, as sheltered probably as some people would see it, as it was, I'm so thankful. I'm just very thankful, and I'm very grateful for the way that my parents brought me up, because I believe that it helped to mold me into the person I am today. I believe that because the way they brought me up, and I accepted Christ as my Savior at 12 years old, is when I gave God my life. And being brought up that way, I believe, is the reason why I was able to withstand all the things that I have gone through in life, because well before then, I had a personal relationship with God. So even when my first husband passed away, even when I had a miscarriage of my own, even when I have gone through things like that, yes, they hurt. Yes, it was hard. Yes,
Hmm.
I had to face the same type of challenges other people face, but I knew to turn to God. And
Yeah,
so I'm very thankful for that.
that is the key. I salute the parents. And you're right. Raising children now and raising children when we were younger are two totally different things.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
there were a lot of
Yes.
things. My mom was, pretty strict as well. But now I'm thankful when I look back on
Oh
it,
yeah.
just like you. I'm grateful and I'm thankful that I couldn't get out in these streets, as they
Oh
say.
yeah. Oh yeah. Hmm.
I'm thankful I couldn't get out
So
in those
thankful.
streets. So, yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, family, when you're growing up, when there happens to be any kids watching, it may not be fun now, but you'll thank us later, okay?
Yes. Yes.
You'll get
Just
it
keep
and you
living.
will,
Keep living.
yeah, keep living. You will thank
Hmm.
us later and be glad you
Yep.
didn't get to attend all those things. And I know for a fact what Kendra said about seeing people who were able to do whatever, whenever, however, you can see it on them. Like they have aged tremendously. They look
Yes.
like they have been through the battle. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
uh, um, I can say for myself, and even looking at Dr. Kendra as well, we don't look like what we've been through. And that's
Mhm.
because of the grace of God that covers our lives. But there are people who have been through some of the same situations, and
Yes.
you can see it a mile away. And so,
Mhm.
we definitely thank the Lord for instilling wisdom in our parents, to
Mhm.
shield us from things that they didn't even know would
Right.
eventually happen.
Hmm.
So Miss Kendra serves as a senior pastor of Deliverance Revival Church, which is in Central Georgia. She also has a radio show and a new podcast coming out.
Hmm.
Tell us, Doctor, and we're going to switch to Dr. K mode. So tell us, Dr. K, about your radio show, and then kind of lead us into how it transitions into your new podcast opportunity.
Okay. Well, I have a ministry that is called Royalty Ministries International. And it's a nonprofit ministry that I have, which a lot of my ministries and the things that I do fall under that umbrella. Well, I started a radio show a couple of years ago called The War Cry. And so WAR stood for and stands for still, it stands for We Are Royalty. And so in this radio show, which was a gospel music radio show, I would, speak in between some of the music tracks that were being played or whatever to encourage the audience and talk to people and even talk about some of the artists that we were actually pushing and playing at that particular time. Well, I actually got with the manager who managed the gospel radio show. And I told her, I said, well, the war cry, me doing the show, the times that they were, sharing what music they would be playing on the show and the times that I could get my sound bites and voice tracks together, it was just the time was kind of crunching together. It wasn't giving me enough time to do what I needed to do. And so I when I talked to her about it, her words to me were, the world really needs to hear your voice. She said, you have
Mm,
something to say. And, God doesn't want you just to migrate away from media
right.
ministry and you having an on-air presence. And she said, what do you think about podcasting? Have you thought about doing a podcast? And it really, really resonated with me because my older daughter and myself had just had that conversation where she had said, Mama, you really should do a podcast because you have more to say than what the time is that they give you to say things on a radio show when you're talking between songs. She said,
Yeah.
there's more ministry that you really want to share with people. So think about getting a podcast. And when she said it, we talked a little bit about it. But when the manager of the gospel radio station said it, that became like confirmation.
Yeah.
It resonated more because now two people have
Yeah.
said that to me about doing it. And so I said to her, I was like, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm actually interested in that. And she said, well, I work on that end too. So when you're ready, she said, you just let me know and I'll let you know how to get started and to get on it. So we have actually been in conversation and she's gotten me connected with people that I need to be connected to. So the war cry will continue, but now it's going to now migrate over to being a podcast. And we're looking at Saturday mornings, having this podcast to come on where it's at the end of the week after everybody has worked. Monday through Friday, just to kind of give them some encouragement and some motivation as they're going into their Sunday and back into the new work week, to just share the goodness of God, sharing some good news, sharing some motivation and some inspiration. I'm telling people that every time they meet with me, they're going to get manna, they're going to get motivation, and they're going to get ministry. When they come there, and we're going to talk about, the goodness of God, we're going to be talking about, some situations and just some things that I believe that, we live in some very troubled times, and people can go anywhere and everywhere. They don't even have to look for bad news. It's right in front of your face from the time you wake up in the morning. When you go on your computer, when you go on your phone, when you go on whatever, when you get your news feed, there's just so much that's going on that people really need to have some real encouragement and some real uplifting to get them out of the mindset of all the bad things that are actually going on. People need to know that the same God that was with our ancestors, with our parents, with whomever, is still with us today, regardless of what we're going through. And they really need to have that type of encouragement. And they need to know who they are and whose they are. And that's how I came up with the war cry. I need people to know that we are royalty. We don't have to be at the bottom of the barrel. We don't have to think down on ourselves. We are children of God. We are joint heirs with Christ. We are royalty, and that's a message that I really want to be able to help to plant inside of people as a part of the podcast. So we have already removed the radio show. I'm not doing the radio show any longer. I was on Highest Praise Radio, internet radio show. Totally loved it, enjoyed that. But I know that God is taking us to a different season with the war cry, and we're still going to be able to share his word and his good news with the masses by doing that. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll be, putting more information out as we get ready to really launch that podcast.
Well, I am so excited and happy for you. This is elevation, because you will be in control of your podcast. You'll be able
Absolutely.
to have more content. And, when you and I had the meeting about me becoming the president of the East Texas chapter, we actually talked about podcasting then, about you getting started in podcasting. So it definitely was meant to be, because,
and you gave some great nuggets. You shared some. It was really encouraging, because when you were talking and talking about really how you kind of learned by doing, you just got out there. Just did it and built it up, and to such a wonderful podcast that you have, because I have had the blessed opportunity to tune in to a few of them that you have done. And so it's been, nobody would know that you just didn't know how to do this forever, in doing it. And so you've done a wonderful job, and you shared a lot of insight, and it encouraged me, to really look toward doing it. And then when the manager there said, hey, if you're ready to do it, I got, we already got this set up, and you can do whatever. I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds good, to be able to do that. So I'm just looking forward to what God is doing. People can tune in to me on Saturday, and then on Sunday morning, they can listen to you and listen to your show on Sundays.
Listen, it's going to be amazing. I already know it's going to be amazing, because just who you are and the call that the Lord has on your life. You are going to be able to minister to so many more people. And as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking to myself, the Lord really needs more people that get it. That ministry is outside of the church walls as well. Yes, you're a pastor inside the church walls, but the reality of the situation is there's people who will never walk into the walls. They will never go into the church doors. And so we have to be able, when you are called of the Lord, it's not limited to the pulpit. It's not limited to the four walls, because the people that are inside the walls already got a revelation. Okay.
Right.
They're there to get strength and to get encouraged. But what about the ones who are scared, or they're still dealing with past church hurt, or just whatever? Mm-hmm. We got to go get them too. We got to make the word of God available to them too. And so I love the fact that you were doing radio, and man, you about to take this thing to 10,000. You about to go to level 10,000 with this podcasting.
I receive it.
Yeah, you're going to level 10,000. Your message, your heart is what people need to hear. And I'm gonna tell you, I take no credit for this podcast. The Holy Spirit taught me all of this stuff. This was not my vision. This was not my idea. The Holy Spirit did all this. And, he's gonna show you not only, what to say, what to talk about. He will get that audience, and you'll be talking to people and you'll be like, oh, I didn't even know that was my target audience. Like, okay,
Wow.
but when the Lord has something for you, you don't have to worry about it, Miss Kendra. He already got the whole plan, and I just can't wait to check it out. I know it's going to be amazing for you. I have Miss Cynthia Ferguson here. Miss Cynthia is tuning in with us tonight. She says, yes, she has. I love the Stephanie. Miss Cynthia is someone that watches on a regular basis, and I'm so grateful for her. She's been a blessing to my life in getting me into a charter school program. I did a pitch competition and published some young ladies from her school, Dr. Kendra. That's something I've been working on with her. So
Awesome.
trying to get kids to understand, you know what, everybody doesn't want to play football. Everybody doesn't want to be a cheerleader.
That's
We can be authors. We can write books and talk about our feelings and our thoughts.
Absolutely.
And just like what you said earlier, writing for me has been therapy as well. I stopped seeing a psychiatrist. I didn't have to pay my therapist anymore after I started writing, because I'm like, wow, okay. I really felt, like the pressure just lifted off my shoulders. But in most of my life at different stages, I always have seen a psychologist, for family stuff. But once the books came about, I was like, look at God.
Wow. That's a testimony within itself. Wow.
Listen, the Lord can do things so many different ways. You think you're just, writing a book about, one situation. And like you said, he turns it into a whole ministry. Podcasting is ministry. Inside the Walls is ministry. Radio shows teaching the gospel is ministry. The books, there's so many ways to minister the gospel, and we all of us that have been called, appointed, set aside to minister the gospel. You got to get creative in this generation. We have got to reach people and be able to save lives, and they're not all going to walk through the door. So you've got to be open to kind of, using technology to our advantage, right? We've got to use it to our advantage. So I want to kind of transition a little bit. This is the thing that got me introduced to Dr. Kendra Norman Holmes. I was checking out this organization on Facebook, and I read about it, and I've never been a person to be like wanting to be a part of any type of sororities or anything of that sort, because I heard a lot of negative stuff. Okay, I'm sure a lot of people have heard a lot of negative stuff, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And so someone that I met at a book festival actually introduced me and sent me a flyer, and I was like, check it out. And so I went online and I was looking there, and I looked on Facebook, and I dug deep, and I was like, who they pledging to? Who they I'm like, who they pledging to? I ain't gonna be, I love Jesus. So after I saw, okay, I was like, okay, this is biblically based. This is pretty much just us as believers, as Christians, coming together with all of who we are and everything that we have to bring together, working together in community for a bigger purpose, doing the Lord's work. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And so I kind of dug deep, and, I joined. And, shortly thereafter, the Lord blessed and opened up an opportunity that I was able to come in and actually become the president of Rho Alpha Tau East Texas chapter. And I was already gung-ho just being a member. I was already happy. But I had the opportunity to have a conversation and meet Miss Kendra. I had previously met someone else that's over membership, Mr. Dwan. But I actually had the opportunity to meet Miss Kendra. And after talking to Miss Kendra, I was like, yeah, I made a good decision, because when you meet people that have a heart for Christ, and I'm talking about real people.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the religion. And one of the things that I say all the time, Kendra, is relationship over religion. I say that
Absolutely.
1,000 times a week
Mhm,
on
mhm.
every podcast episode, in person, at every conference, every event. You're going to hear me say relationship over religion,
Yes,
because
yeah.
that's what it's about. Transformation doesn't
Mhm.
happen without relationship.
Right.
You have relationship.
Absolutely.
Relationship
Absolutely.
brings about conviction, which brings
Mhm,
about change. You have
mhm.
to be able to hear from the Holy Spirit. You can't hear from the Holy Spirit if you don't know who He is and have a relation. You got to know His voice. And
Mhm.
so, saying all that to say, I'm so happy, so grateful for the opportunity to be connected to Rho Alpha Tau and to Dr. Kendra, and this amazing opportunity to minister together. Um, so listen, let's shift into the Rho Alpha Tau conversation. There are so many opportunities to partner. I was telling the people that have joined here in the East Texas chapter, I was like, listen, y'all, we're gonna be going to Georgia. We're going to go see Miss
Mhm.
Kendra. We're gonna go. We're gonna go check out some of the other chat. We're gonna pop up at some events. Like, we're not gonna be
Yeah.
doesn't do anything. I was like, once we
Mhm.
couple of these events we got going on, we're gonna take a
Yeah.
road trip, and so they were all, excited. um
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just like, you know what, the Lord saved this for a time such as this, that it was the appropriate type of sorority and fraternity for me to be a part of, and I'm just excited. So listen, Rho Alpha Tau Christian Writers Fraternity and Sorority Inc., most often referred to as Rho Alpha Tau Inc. Okay, faith-based, and it's Greek letter fellowship, ministry made up of men and women who are purposeful and intentional about using their gifts and talents to create materials that honor God. Okay, His work, our hands. Okay, the programs, initiatives, and partnerships developed and carried out through Rho Alpha Tau are the intent to enhance and upbuild individuals, families, and local communities and the world. And so I am just honored again to be able to talk to Miss Kendra today. Miss Kendra is the creator, the visionary. She holds the position as the president as well as the national treasurer. So tell me, Miss Kendra, um, how did this come about? What
Ooh,
was the
yeah.
inspiration to go from ministry, to go from books, to go into Rho Alpha Tau?
And it's still all ministry. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
yeah.
Rho Alpha Tau, Rho Alpha Tau was something that God brought to me so many years ago, several years ago. And as crazy as this may sound, I saw it as a joke. It really,
Mm,
when it first was brought up in my spirit, I saw it as a joke. And the reason for it was because at the time it rose in my spirit, there
mhm,
was the Divine Nine, a group of
mhm,
Divine Nine members who were also authors, had started a tour group back during that time, and they were called the uh, Divine something on tour. I don't think it was called Divine Nine, but it was there would be members from all of the different Divine Nine organizations that would get together, and they were on tour. It was like a Greek authors on tour that they had. And so when they came through Atlanta, which is where I was living at the time, Atlanta, Georgia, when they came through there, one of the members reached out to me and just said, we know you're in the Atlanta area, and more people know you as an author in that area than know us. So we want to know if you'll come and be our guest author with us when we come through Atlanta, and if you'll help us promote it and get other people there. And
yeah,
so I agreed to do that, to be the guest author with them. And so I went, with them to a couple of stops, and several people came. We were packing out the place when they came, and I actually stood in front of them and told them, like, in a joking manner, that all of a sudden, I had this, feeling, and like I'm supposed to start, this Greek letter fellowship, and it's going to be called Rho Alpha Tau, and and I'm just going on, and I'm laughing, they're laughing, because they saw it as the joke that I thought that it was. And so I was like, I don't know what kind of call we gonna have, what kind of what I said, but I just keep hearing Rho Alpha Tau, and just doing all this, and so they were even making up little calls, like just yelling out stuff. You could do this, you could do that. And I'm just laughing about it, didn't pay any attention to it. But when it came back to me again in the year of 2023, when it rose back up in my spirit again, it was like the Holy Spirit said, I ain't playing with you. And I said, I wasn't, I don't know what you're laughing at. We're gonna try this one more time. Right. And I'm gonna tell you again, to do this, it's really settled in my spirit, and I heard it that time, and then I started looking at how it aligned with so much that God had placed in my heart for ministry, which I have a ministry that has the whole sound of royalty. So here was Rho Alpha Tau, Rho OT, that came out. I was just like, oh my goodness, and it's just started really all coming together. And I sat down and just started pulling the plan together. I reached out to get the incorporation, paper, to get all of that together, and I was looking at it like, this is really happening. And now I'm going to need God to draw who he wants to be a part of this. And so I got it all together. I found a guy on Facebook who did the crest for us, the shield for us, and, did all of that. And so it was coming together. God was linking me with who he wanted me to link with. And then I reached out to Dr. Dwan Abrams, who's my best friend, has been my best friend for over 20 years. And I reached out to her, and she's a Christian author. And I reached out to my eldest daughter and talked to her, who she's also a best-selling author. And so I was talking to them, and I was like, I need a base of people to be the founders of this organization with me. And I also would need to have you as national officers of youth. And they immediately caught the vision. When I talked to them, it was not a coaxing. I wasn't having to drag them in or to convince them of it or anything. It was like God had already aligned it. So when I spoke to them, although my daughter is connected, or, well, I guess I would say is, because you don't really leave the Divine Nine organization. She's not active with them anymore, but she had already been connected with the Deltas, and so she knew about Divine Nine and how they did things, and so she would be bringing up things that how they did, and I was like, no, that's not what God is telling us to do, because we're not going to make a pledge to an organization. We're going to make a pledge to God. When we pull our pledge together, we're going to be speaking to God about what we're going to use this organization and allow him to use our hands, allow him to use this organization to do this. We're here to be vessels to be used by God. And so once I got everything together and put it together and put it out there, God just started drawing people, that people would see it and they would reach out and say, hey, what is this about? What are you doing? And people would look at it and actually immediately catch it. And a lot of what they would see would be just like you, Stephanie, because a lot of the others who are a part of it are people who did not connect with the traditional Greek letter organizations for the same reasons, because they're giving pledges to organizations. They're saying that they're going to put this before they do anything else. This comes first to them. They will put their life on the line for this. They would do. And when you listen to those things, you're thinking to yourself, these are things we ought to be saying about God. We're willing to do this for God, but not to be doing this for other organizations and things of that nature. And so God allowed me to really be able to pinpoint a lot of the things that would hinder Christians, people who would really look at the letter of what the other organizations were saying, because there are a lot of Christians who are in these other organizations. Please don't get me wrong. There are a lot of other Christians who are in those organizations, but a lot of times we don't really think about what we're saying and what we're doing when we're doing that. When we think about the songs that they put in place, what are we saying in those songs? What are we saying when we're pledging? What are we saying when we're doing? And a lot of times we just kind of join things blindly. It's just fun. It's something we want to be a part of. But at the end of the day, look at what you really signed on for and what you have said you will actually do. Will you really do that? And most Christians are not willing to do the things that they say that they will do. in the organizations. And so,
Yeah.
God allowed me to look at all those things and to pull them all out and to say, this is
Yeah.
not going to be a part of Rho Alpha Tau. We're not doing this
Yeah.
in Rho Alpha Tau. If it's not about God, this is because Rho Alpha Tau is a Greek letter ministry. It's a Greek letter fellowship. This is something where Christians, believers in Jesus Christ, who also have talents and gifts and things of that nature that they do it, and they do it in a way that actually honors God, in a way that does not offend God. And so they are willing to pledge to God that I'm going to let you use my hands. I'm going to allow you to use me to go out into my community and upbuild my community. I'm going to allow you to, use my feet, allow you to use my heart, my words, my mouth, whatever it is that we're doing. And we want to go out and show you to the world. So Rho Alpha Tau has a fivefold ministry, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it is something where we really have things. I looked in the scriptures. I saw what Jesus did. And I said, that's what we're going to do.
Let me shout for a minute.
We are going to do what Jesus did. When Jesus went into the communities, he was going to feed the hungry. He was going to clothe the naked. He was going to deliver the imprisoned. He was going to do these things. So that's what we're going to allow God to use our hands to do. And so that's what it's about. And I put it out there, and I did not expect it to grow as swiftly as it did. And for people in just other states and other areas to reach out. And I know that before it's over, we're going to go beyond the borders of the United States. I believe we're going to end up being in other places outside of the United States, where they will actually have chapters in those places as well. And so I am already preparing for that, to say that, God, I want you to already fix my mind, allow me to have the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding that is necessary to be able to carry out this work that you have given me, because I don't know what I'm doing, God. I'm just following your lead, and what it is that you're actually telling me to do with this. And God is now bringing in men, women, white, Black. He's bringing us together. And one of the things that someone said to me, a white sister actually saw, she's not a part of the organization, but she saw me advertising Rho Alpha Tau once, and she looked at the pictures that I was putting there, and she inboxed me. And she said, I don't even think she inboxed me. I think she posted it on that particular post that I had put up. And she put in there, and she said, I'm looking at your pictures of your organization that you have here. And she said, all I could think is, this is what heaven looks like, because it's not all Black. It's not all women. It's not a sorority of just all women. It's not a Black organization of just Black men and women. This is open to people who are believers in Jesus Christ. I don't care what color you are. It doesn't matter which gender you are, to come in and to connect with us and allow your hands to be used to do God's work in and around your community. And I just cannot wait until we get it. It is my hope and my prayer that by our 5-year mark, we'll be able to have a national conference or a convention where everybody from all the states and all the chapters can come together, and we can all be able to meet with one another and just have a good old time of worship together, as well as having some workshops that are still meant to build ministry in us, that's meant to empower us to be able to carry out the work that God will actually have us to do. That's my vision for this. And so I just believe, we've had our incidents in it, which you are aware of. We've had, but I look at it like this: anytime God has called you to do something, there's always going to be an enemy that the devil has groomed or whatever to try to come and to cause some discord. But God allowed us to overcome it. And as long as we continue to keep him first, and we keep it in our minds who it is that we're really working for, who it is that we're really trying to please, who it is that, we are representing, I think that we'll always remain on the right path. And as we grow, we'll just grow stronger in God as we actually grow. So I'm very excited to have you. And I was very thankful that you were willing to step in and take over Mu chapter and be the one and the lead and to head. And you've just done, like I told you earlier, such an awesome job reaching out and advertising and bringing others in. And I just believe God is going to do great things in your East Texas chapter area as you go about to allow your hands to be used to do God's work. And that's really what it's all about. And so, I tell people, if you're interested in Rho Alpha Tau, if you know of people who would be interested in Rho Alpha Tau, share it. It's roalphatau.com. It's not hard to find us on the internet. It tells you everything, because we don't have no secrets. Ain't no secret pledge, ain't no secret nothing. So you go on the website, you find our pledge, you find what we're about. We are very transparent in what it is that we're doing, because we want the whole world to know. We're not trying to keep it a secret. We want the whole world to know what it is that we're doing and who it is that we're representing through what we are doing. And we want everybody who wants to take part in that, everybody who wants to be a part of it, to come and to connect with it. There's a small process. There's no line period where you have to be online and you got to do dumb stuff. We just don't do that, kind of stuff. You have a period where you interview with our National Dean of Membership. She'll do a Zoom. If you're not local to where she is, she'll do a Zoom interview with you, tell you what we're about, allow you to ask questions. She asks you some questions to make sure you have a full understanding of what we're about and what our mission is and what we want to accomplish. Once she does that, then she sends you a welcome letter. She lets you know the costs that are involved in it and all of that. And then you just move forward from there. You connect with the president in your area, or if we don't have a chapter in your area, guess what? You can be the chapter in your area. You can be the president and step in and decide that you want to build one in your area. Right now, I believe we are about 15 chapters strong, and we're in like 10 different states. And God is just blessing. He's blessing. And right now, Rho Alpha Tau is one of my favorite things. It really is. So I'm just very grateful to God for what he is doing. And like I said, there may be people who watch this who may say, well, I'm not a creative. We have people in our group. The name is a little bit misleading, because you hear Christian writers, you think you got to be writing books, but you can be writing plans, like plans for the bracelets that you are designing, plans for the t-shirts that you're designing. It's about being creative, using your hands. So whatever it is that God has anointed your hands to do, you're doing that in a way that glorifies God. So we have songwriters, we have recording artists, we have t-shirt makers, we have jewelry makers we have poets, we have podcast people that are there. There are just so many different people that we have, people that are looking at us now that actually do photography. So they are photographers, they are creative, they're taking pictures, using their hands to do the work of God. So if that is you, or if that's somebody then please, absolutely share Rho Alpha Tau with them. It'll be a brand new family on a different level. It's not about your education. So we're not looking at how many, did you go to college? Did you pursue this? None of that matters. It's not about your education. It's not about any of that. It's about your walk with God and what you're doing with what God has given to you. And then you want to find a network of believers who do the same thing that you are doing, and who have the same purpose and the same mindset that you have. That's what this is all about. And so check out roalphatau.org or roalphatau.com. It's a .org.com. It's one of them. Let's check it. Just do it. For Rho Alpha Tau.
roalphatau.com. And once you check out the website, get connected, then you can find out again about if there's a chapter in your state. And like Dr. Kendra said, if it's not, listen, we want you to start a chapter. And so we're trying to get the word out about Rho Alpha Tau and the community, the collaboration. And I tell you, that's one of the things I love. Like I said, I was happy just being a member, but I'm even more grateful for the opportunity to be the president of the East Texas chapter. But the collaboration, the fact that I know I'm not having to do it alone, that is a really big deal, because, I've been in ministry of a long time, pretty much a long time at this point, but I've been doing it alone, other than just me and the Lord, you know what I mean? And I've had some groups here, and then people fall off. And then I've had some groups here, and then people fall off. Well, guess what? When you build something like Rho Alpha Tau, there's so many people that are joined and connected. There's always going to be a collaboration opportunity with some people. And so it's not just you and your 4 or 5, it's much bigger. And so, again, roalphatau.com. East Texas chapter is new, but we are building. I'm so grateful. Charity chimed in tonight on the interview, as well as Joseph, which are both amazing assets.
Welcome to both of you.
And listen, we are growing and still growing on all levels, all chapters. So wherever you are watching this broadcast, if you want to be a part of something big, you want to have some fellowship with Christian believers that are out doing things in the community. We've got projects going on right now. We actually we kicked off a project started right now that we're going to be putting items in a bag for 40 days when lit season starts, so that we can be a blessing. And the East Texas chapter has accepted the challenge. We are we are going to be starting our bags up in February, and it's already February. It don't even seem like it's February.
Already February. It
in
is
just a couple of weeks, and so we are excited. Listen, I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you tonight, Dr. Kendra. It's been amazing being able to talk about so many things the Lord has blessed you to be able to be a part of. And just looking forward to years and years of more communication and collaborations. And I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate you. I respect you, and I appreciate you. You are an inspiration. And so just thank you for just being obedient. I know you probably look at it as just, you're just living your life, but you know what? You are an inspiration. And I love that word above your head, inspire. And because that's what you're doing, you're inspiring. And Miss Charity said, I'm excited too. Yes. But yeah, I just want to let you know that you are living a life that speaks for you. Because when I read your bio, I've had conversations with you, and I was already sold on the fact that you are somebody that I like in my circle. But when I read your bio and I saw the things that you have accomplished and the things that you've been through to get there, I was like, okay, wow, and just hearing you speak, ministry is your life. It makes sense. And so the Lord is going to continue to do so many amazing things through you. I know you spend a lot of time pouring into people, but I just felt I needed to pour into you tonight. The Lord said, pour into her tonight. And so from me and the Lord, you're doing some amazing things. And he is going to continue to bless all of your efforts. And he's with you. So you don't need to worry about the new things he's going to take you into. It's going to be even more new areas that he's going to push you into. But he's with you. And so because of that, you don't have to worry. He's got you covered. And if you don't know about it, you've got people in Rho Alpha Tau and other connections that do know about it. And so that's the blessing of collaboration. There are a lot of things that I don't know, but I know I can call Kendra, or I can call Dwan, or whatever, and so that is also the blessing for all of you that are thinking about, whether or not you want to become a member. That is the blessing, that you have someone that is within your network, and part of the whole network is community, is fellowship, is collaboration. So now you no longer have to wonder how to figure this out. Reach out to one of us and be like, hey, do you know anything about this? And we're willing to share that information. We're not in competition with each other. We're trying to each other. And that's what I felt immediately when I came on and I read everything, and that's what I felt immediately. And so I was just like, I'm not for the situation that happened previously, Miss Kendra. I was like, I'm not gonna let the enemy steal my blessing.
I know.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that was pretty much my response as well. Like, we're not even going to entertain this. Not at all.
We knew this blessing and this connection was bigger than we even knew, with the warfare that came. And so that just kind of signified, anytime you experience warfare, which I experience a lot of warfare on a regular basis, but times 10, times 10 for something that you are trying to do or go into, you got to fight even harder, because that's a signal that this is meant to be. It is ordained. It is your destiny. Because the adversary does not want you to tap into that. And so I am so grateful for the opportunity again. And I'm somebody's like, oh, she's just talking. No, I'm not. I'm really not just talking.
Yeah.
You really don't understand. It matters who you're attached to. It matters. And when you can look at someone's bio, you can look at someone's walk, someone's life, and say, if she can do that, I can do that. Because sometimes there's a lot of people even watching now. Sometimes we want to check out. We want to give up. But you know what? When you've got people encouraging you and you've got community, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And so as we come to a close tonight, I'm about to start on a whole different thing. But as we come to a close tonight, I want to give you 3 words, Dr. Kendra. And this is the platform: healing, empowerment, transformation. Which one of those words stands out the most, and tell us why? Again, healing, empowerment, transformation.
I think that the one that stands out first when you say those 3 is healing, because I think healing has to come before any of the others. And so, you have to be healed, and you have to allow other people to heal as well. And so I think healing is the one that stands out, the most for me, because I know even in my own life, the transformation certainly came, the empowerment certainly came, but it came on the tail of the healing, to be able to be healed first, and then be able to project that out to other people, to be able to share your story. You got to heal oftentimes from whatever it is that you went through before you get to the point where you can use that story to empower others, before you can even use that story to allow it to transform you, not kill you, not be something to cripple you. Because if you don't get healing first, then whatever your story is based on what it is that you've been through may have the power to cripple you, may have the power to silence you, to shut you up, to make you not want to move forward. But if you allow yourself to be healed of it, and then allow yourself to be transformed by whatever it is that you may have gone through, then you can turn around and not just be empowered yourself by it, but use that same testimony to empower others. And so for me, healing would stand out first and foremost.
All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. This has been an amazing conversation tonight. Let me give you an opportunity as we get ready to come to a close. Can you give out your contact information if somebody wants to contact you about Rho Alpha Tau, about your publications, about your new digital magazine, about the podcast? How can they contact you?
I would tell people that when we're talking about the internet itself, the going on the web, you can visit my official website, which is royaltywriter.net, ROYALTY, writer, WRITER.net. If you go there, there are pages there that really will take you to all of the other aspects there. That's if you go to there, you can also find my publishing page. You can also, find a link that'll actually take you to the Royal Trumpet, which is the name of the newspaper, online newspaper is the Royal Trumpet. You can find information there. You can even find information about Rho Alpha Tau. But all of these different things that fall under the umbrella of Royalty Ministries, they do have their own websites. Right. But if you go to royaltywriter.net, you can find a link to all of them. As you read the bio on there, as you go to the other pages, you can find the links that go there. On social media, you can just look for Kendra Norman Holmes and find me on my Facebook page. As far as my Instagram page, you look for Royalty Writer there, and you can find me there. My podcast page, I actually have a page that's called a website page that's called drkontheairway.com. Mm-hmm. So okay. drkontheairway.com would embody any of my on-air media type shows that I have. So that was the website to go to for my previous radio show. And it's also the one that you can go to keep updated on the podcast, as well as we get ready to, in the phase to get ready to launch that. So requesting the prayers of all of you as we move forward with all the ministry, the arms of ministry that God hands us, so that all those things will be successful and that we can actually reach those people that God has already earmarked to receive the ministry that he's giving us to share with them.
Yes, yes, yes. Such a blessing. Again, Dr. Kendra Norman Holmes, amazing author, best-selling author, new podcast host, and national president of Rho Alpha Tau. Make sure that you check her out, support her on all of the endeavors that she's got going on. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to another special edition of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show. It has been a pleasure having you here tonight. Please make sure that you like, tag, and share all of that. Like, tag, share all of it. This interview. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show, make sure that you subscribe, okay, and be looking forward to next episodes. I will be taking this week off. I will not be podcasting on Tuesday or Thursday of this week. Do lift me up in prayer. I will be having some different things going on this week, but we will be back on next week. So on next Tuesday, we'll probably be running some previous interviews for Tuesday and Thursday, but we will be back live again next week. Okay. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Miss Kendra, if you will just hang tight there for a moment. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you guys have an amazing night. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
If you would like to be a guest on the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show, email Stephanie at stephaniemseatontheauthor@gmail.com.